Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Hope you guys are doing well. No, I'm doing fine. How was your day? For those who might not know, I am Megan Lee, and on my channel, I share true crime cases and dark stories from Asia. But today, I will bring you some creepy stories while getting myself ready for a night out. I will try to make this type of content more and also show you my skincare routine, so I hope you guys enjoy them. And about my second channel, thanks for being so patient with me, but these days I have been so overwhelmed with work and also the anxiety from trying to show you a completely different side of me. It has been really adding to all the pressure, so I decided to open one when I'm ready and I feel comfortable about doing new stuff. But anyways, I will try to upload fresh new content here on my channel, so those who wanted scary stories back, stay tuned for more. And today, I invite you to sit back, relax, and grab your favorite drink, whether it's a cup of tea, a glass of wine, or whatever you like, and join me for some spooky storytelling while I do my makeup. And today I made myself mulled wine. So good. So today's story is from Korea. You know, I love stories related to paranormal encounters, ghost stories, but I think real life, urban legend type of stories that make you realize how terrifying humans can be and remind you that we are constantly exposed to real dangers in our everyday lives can really be scarier. It can really send shivers down your spine. So today's story is something like that. Today's story happened to a man in his 40s living in Busan, and he wrote about his own experiences online. It's interesting. And believe me, if this is true, there is no way I'm going to Busan on a trip. I'm kidding. Busan is a wonderful city. But anyways, the fact that this story is linked to a specific location, which is very popular with tourists in Busan, makes it even scarier. A lot of you might have visited this place during your visit to Korea, to Busan. So yeah, it's pretty chilling. It reminds us that, wherever you are, you have to be careful. Okay, I will start with my makeup now so that you can have something to listen and watch at the same time. This incident happened to this man when he was in his early 30s, so that's about 10 years ago, I think, along with a friend. What they experienced that night was something they had only heard about from these online communities where people share their craziest stories, but they never thought they would experience this themselves. It was back in 2015 when he was 32 years old. At the time, he was working for the postal service, handling parcels, so he was basically a delivery man. And during his job, he bumped into his high school buddy, whom he hadn't been in touch with since their school days. This man was living in Gwaejeongdong, Busan, at the time, an area where he delivered to. So his house, the friend's house, ordered a lot of packages, and his unique name caught his attention. So he was like, oh, I think I know this name. And being the curious guy, he couldn't resist and called him up. And sure enough, he was his old schoolmate. He was so happy to reconnect, and they started hanging out occasionally for drinks. But looking back, he sometimes regrets not having just ignored the whole thing. So for about 3 months, everything was fine, hanging out with him. And then one day, his friend suggested they go on a blind date. So it was like a double date. He was basically offering to set him up, and he was pretty intrigued, right? Like, who wouldn't be? Remember, he delivered parcels. His job didn't exactly make it easy to meet women, and opportunities like this weren't common, so he agreed, without hesitation, and they set a date. He still remembers it clearly, September 5th, a Saturday night at 9 p.m. near Nampodong Exit 1. It's a day he will never forget. He and his friend met around 7 p.m. for a quick meal before meeting the women at 9. His friend mentioned that the ladies wanted to start with drinks. It was pretty unusual because if you go on a blind date, you start with dinner together and then go for drinks. But these ladies wanted to start with drinks, so he was like, okay, why not? Why not? It sounds better. Although it seemed a little late, these two men agreed. So imagine how excited they were to meet these two young women. So he and his friend had just finished eating at a pork soup restaurant and were just killing time at a PC room when they got a call from one of the women. She said that they were almost there, so they headed to the meeting place. He remembers arriving a bit early, maybe about 30 minutes before the scheduled time. And as they nearly reached exit 1, he saw two incredibly beautiful women. So they were like, oh my God, wow, I am so lucky today. And at that moment, he felt extremely grateful to his friend for setting up the meet. They went to a nearby bar with the women and started chatting. They had a great time. And there he learned that both women were models, much younger than them, in their 20s. And looking back, he realizes how strange it was that such young and attractive women would go on a blind date without any conditions. But at that time, he just thought that his friend was really good at making connections. So after drinking for a while, his friend suggested going to a karaoke bar for the second round. But one of the women said, karaoke? No, that's so cliche. Let's just drink more. She then mentioned a mobile food stall, which we call 포장마차 in Korean, run by an acquaintance nearby, and suggested they go together there. So they followed her to this food stall street. They entered one of the many food stalls there, run by a young woman in her early to mid-20s who seemed really close to the women they were with. But something struck them as odd. Out of the many food stalls, this one had no customers. So there were many other food stalls nearby because it was a food stall street, and they were all full. But this one was the only pocha that was empty. He thought it was strange, and the owner, sensing that he was feeling kind of suspicious, said that she only did takeout and didn't serve table customers, but she had set up a space for them after being informed of their visit. So when he was told that the stall owner had set up a space especially for them, he felt both grateful and a bit overwhelmed, but then he started sensing something was off. It didn't make sense that the stall, supposedly not serving table customers, was selling alcohol. And if you're only doing deliveries, why would you have to have a stall like that, right? It didn't make sense to him. The excessive kindness is something that you have to be really careful, especially in a country like Korea, because Korean people are very nice, are very shy. They don't display excessive affection or care to strangers. And there is a saying, if it's too good to be true, it is. But again, despite his suspicions, he brushed it off, thinking the owner had her own reasons, and he expected the good vibes to continue. But then, something terrible and unexpected happened. He isn't sure if the stall owner spiked their drinks, but after having a shot she offered, his memory of the night at the stall disappeared. Yeah, he just blacked out. When he woke up, he found himself in a hospital bed with his mother standing beside him. He was completely confused and asked, "Mom, what happened?" And his mother, with tears in her eyes, told him something that left him in shock. Just a few hours earlier, the vehicle he was in had been in a severe accident. The crash was so bad that the 3 men in the car, except for him, had all died. After hearing all this, he was completely confused. Like, what car? I was drinking with a friend and 2 beautiful young ladies, and after that, he got into a car and got in an accident? He didn't remember any of that. So it turns out that after he blacked out, he was taken to a car with his friend. So it was 2 strangers and his friend and him. And all of them died except him. It was hard to believe until he saw his friend's name among the deceased. This realization sent chills down his spine. The grief of losing his friend was overwhelming, but another chilling fact emerged during the investigation. His deceased friend's phone had records of random chats, and it turned out to be the women they met were from these chats. And it turns out that these women were just hired for money, and the person this friend was chatting with was someone else entirely. But the story doesn't end there. He heard something even more scary from the detective in charge. The other men in the car during the accident weren't Koreans, but Chinese. There is a lot of urban legends, scary stories revolving around Chinese criminal organizations operating in Korea for human organs. Yeah, had not there been an accident, he might have been entangled in a serious crime. It's possible that he might have been killed by those criminals. It's so sad that the friend had been sacrificed, killed from that accident, but he was lucky to survive from all that. Magnetic eyelashes. So easy and simple. So when he was hospitalized, traces of animal tranquilizers were found in both his and his friend's bodies. It seemed they were drugged with tranquilizer-laced alcohol, and as soon as they passed out, these mysterious men took them away, and then leading to this car accident. This all happened in just one day. A terrifying escalation from a simple chat online. But what was more despairing is that this case was closed as a mere traffic accident. He tried to find clues by visiting the food stall they had been to that night, but he couldn't find the young female owner or even a similar stall. No one in the vicinity knew anything about that stall. So, yeah. The detective warned him about certain food stalls selling drinks in a retro style reminiscent of the 80s and 90s, when it was common to sell not only a bottle of soju, but individual servings of soju or rice wine. I don't know if these kind of stalls exist now. I don't think so, but anyways, these places might use toxic substances or tranquilizers, so people have to be very careful. It's been around 10 years since the incident, and as the anniversary of his friend's death approaches, the memories still haunt him, bringing fear and pain. It is such a tragic story. The first thing that we have to remind ourselves, like if you're meeting a person that you don't know and met online, you have to be extra cautious. And if you feel that something is off, in most cases, it is. So just look after yourself and just think about the numerous possibilities that could go wrong. Okay, so this is pretty much the end of today's story. If you find these stories intriguing, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for listening, and see you again in the next one. Good night.